Martel, it's good to see you in the chat as well. Got a few familiar faces that I can see that are live right now. I anticipate we'll have a couple more trickle in as we get going. Um, but like I said, I'm super excited for today. We're going to be talking about some fun things. So this is the 2023 sourcing summary with Aquaman. Let's get into some of the fun stuff. So first things first is taking a look back as to why this particular webinar feels so special to me. I started the monthly webinar series a year ago, when December of 2022, which feels so far back. So much has happened, but looking back, I was Aquaman with the Wayne Technologies team. I was working with Batman. That's his company. They are a sourcing as a service provider. We got hit really, really hard as part of the tech recession, with all the mass layoffs that we were seeing about a year ago, that we're still feeling. Absolutely, we got hit really hard, and it allowed us more free time to approach things in ways that we wanted to do something meaningful with those that we can interact with, and that was where the birth of the monthly webinar with Aquaman came from. Was I had learned a ton. I had had the opportunity to speak at a couple conferences, to attend a couple conferences and learn more. And I simply wanted to share what I knew, what I was learning, and believed that if everybody was sharing information and we were all doing better, we very much as an industry would be seen in a better light. It's not hard to find unfavorable reviews of people in talent acquisition. So I try hard to make sure that we can change that. So that's where all this started a year ago, was with Wayne Technologies. And in February, I was part of a layoff as a result of that tech recession. Was really difficult, but I was super grateful for the contacts that I had made. I was unemployed for long, and started with BECU in April. And that's where I am now. I'm with an incredible team. We're doing some really cool stuff, building out sourcing function, changing the way that we approach talent acquisition as a whole. We're doing some really cool stuff with some pretty incredible people. A couple other logos you see there on the screen. For me professionally, it was a really big year. I got invited to speak at SourceCon this coming April. That was a really big deal for me. The couple times that I had spoken at conferences before, I was a co-presenter with Batman, and so I very much felt as though I was being carried, so to speak. I knew a lot, and I knew I could stand on my own 2 feet, but a lot of it was that co-presenting with an authority and a figure that was very out in the community. So this past October, I got invited to speak at SourceCon, and I'm super excited. It's going to be a lot of fun diving into building X-ray strings. My webinar back in October was kind of a trial run for what I'm hoping to do at SourceCon. So we'll continue to work on that. And then the second one you see is the live webinar logo, which is where I host my webinars. Again, it's been a year, and I hope to do this again for another year and keep doing it month after month for as long as I'm able to. So I'm excited, and we're going to talk about what the future looks like with that. But let's get into some of the fun stuff. This is perhaps the most proud content that I created to be able to share. Was my LinkedIn X-ray cheat sheet. This was featured in October's webinar. This is a tool that I put together after hosting a handful of webinars on intro to Boolean, intro to X-ray, sourcing fundamentals, that I realized if I put something like this together that I could share, people would be able to pick up X-ray, understand how it works, and operate at a functional level, and begin to start to learn some of the cooler tricks once you understand the nuances that a base search needs to have. So if you don't have a copy of this, let me know. I'd be happy to send it your way. I'll also send this out with the recording. But this was a really cool idea, and a brainchild that kind of started back in August. I had some collaboration with it with Martel, who's in the chat. So thank you, Martel. we talked about a couple different things. You gave me some feedback. Uh, this is uh, really, I feel like the pinnacle of the X-ray sourcing that I've learned and that I try to share with others is how do you start, where do you start, and what is effective. There's some really cool advanced tips and tricks in here that are kind of sprinkled throughout. For example, the years of experience and creating years as an or statement to start looking at years of experience tied to a job title, um, and really just building those base searches was a lot of fun to work on. So shout out to Martel. Thank you for collaborating with me on that. But this is where I would say the most pride in my year has come from. The next was diving into GitHub X-Ray, and we're going to look at some examples here. But diving into GitHub X-Ray and realizing that LinkedIn isn't the only place that we can consistently find people. I do a lot of recruiting in software development for BECU. So it was a lot of fun to continue to explore this. I talked about it in February. It was something that I had picked up. I was learning, and as I've continued at BECU as the sole supporter of technology sourcing at the moment, we continue to look at ways that we could find talent that wasn't being bombarded with LinkedIn emails. Continue to dive into GitHub X-Ray and finding those that made sense to reach out to. This is a slide from February. It's been circulated a couple times in a couple presentations of mine. But really, when you're looking at GitHub, you have two options, and I think that alone misses a lot of people. It's not just GitHub.com. GitHub.io is another platform that you can utilize in searching for particularly tech people, software engineers, architects, developers, all of it. So you can see here, there's two essential formats. GitHub.com, you're looking for indicators on a page that'll note that it's a person. So you're looking for phrases like joined on or contribution activity. You're going to want to look for your primary tech stack. I threw in a slew here at the end of Python, Java, or Ruby. But put in your particular tech stacks. Keep in mind, they'll have to be the open source tech stacks. But look here. This is a great place to find those. In addition to GitHub.com, though, GitHub.io is a platform where developers are publishing their content, whether that's through blogs or if they're doing it as a resume platform. And so I've contacted several engineers by finding their resume on GitHub.io, and it wasn't always fruitful in bringing along a hire or someone to even get in the system immediately. But a lot of what it did was created networking opportunities. They saw that I was a serious sourcer, that I wasn't just the spam LinkedIn, try and find everybody that everybody else is finding. And then, asking for referrals and getting leads that way. A lot of people know a lot of people. So just making connections in ways that are out of the norm is highly effective in itself. So a couple examples of what those might look like, in an actual Boolean search format, right? Site : github.com. Again, here's the syntax of joined on or contribution activity or contributions in the last year. Those are indicators that I'm looking for a home page for GitHub. I'm not looking for repositories, read.me's. I'm looking for the landing pages for profiles. Throw in your text. This is going to be what they either note on their profile that they do, or it's going to be their pinned repositories. So you're going to see what is most exciting to them or what they're most commonly coding in. And then throw in a location, as simple as that, New York. You can tie it to an around statement if you want to. I have found that it's effective enough to just put the location there. But yeah, this really simple GitHub X-ray example to get the ball rolling, to start finding software developers in areas that you're looking. The example of GitHub.io is is very similar. I'm looking particularly for resumes as opposed to blogs in this particular search. But you can play with it in different ways. So site colon github.io and then search for gmail.com, or in URL resume, in URL CV. What you're looking for is people that are providing information that's going to be relevant for you to be able to contact them. What is their name attached to that's going to have either resume, CV or an email, and substitute Gmail for any email syntax that you want, and it'll work the same. List your text. List the thing that you're looking for. Machine learning, is the example I used here. Make sure you're being inclusive about the way that people talk about it. Machine learning or ML, both are going to be important ways to go about and be inclusive there. And again, throw a location. This one gets really tricky to try and tie to an around statement because all these resumes are formatted so differently. It's not consistent like a LinkedIn profile or even a GitHub profile. What you're looking at is locations, and it takes a little bit more ciphering. But a really simple github.io example. This is the cool thing. We're actually going to go live here. I have not shared this in a presentation this year. This was something that I shared a while back. It's actually been almost 2 years. So if you don't know this trick, I hope this blows your mind. If you do know this trick, kudos to you, because this is really helpful in saving you contact credits if you're sourcing from GitHub. But we are going to go live. So we're going to jump over to this GitHub profile. I'll zoom in so it's a little easier to see. So the things that we're looking for when you sign into a GitHub profile is you want to click over to their repositories. And this is how you're going to find their contact information. Let's say you found a GitHub profile, they match what you're looking for, they're in the location that's right. You come over to their repositories, and we're already here. I was saving some time, but you click repositories, and then the important thing is that you find one that is not forked. So you can see right here under Snapdrop, it says forked from. I don't want a repository that's forked. I want one that he created. So iMessage Analyzer is not forked. It is one that he is the owner of. So I'll click into his repository. The thing that I'm looking for here, because there's a lot of information, is over here on the right-hand side of the screen. I've got 467 commits. All I got to do is click into those commits, and I find one that he has created. So I can see the host. If you forget profile information, here's the developer that created this particular repository. So now all I got to find is his name down here, is where I can see that he created this repository. Go ahead or the commit, excuse me. This is essentially his update to it. Click on it and then go all the way up here to the URL. Click at the end after all the numbers, and then you just hit .patch. It'll pull you to this information, and I can see some information here, but I can see from. I can now see what his full name is, and I can see his contact information that he used to sign up for GitHub. So if you're not using this to contact engineers and stepping off of LinkedIn InMails, this is a very easy way to do it and save yourself some time. I've also found that a lot of engineers, developers, and whatnot on LinkedIn will share their GitHub profile. So if you have tried to contact them through LinkedIn InMails and they're not responding, here's your second point of contact. Come in and get their emails. So that's a fun trick I've shared before, but not in a webinar in the last year. But that's retrieving emails from GitHub. One of the fun things that I love to do, and and being able to contact people where they're at and not relying on them to be where I'm at. But this is the flow. Click on repositories again, non-forked repo. Go to the commits, commit from the user, and then add .patch to the URL. Any questions there? Was that a first time for anybody to see that? All right, we'll keep going. This was another thing Yes, Marvin, I love the hack too. Great to hear from you. And Summer, I'm glad that this was a first time for you. It's a really powerful tool, and a lot of engineers and developers are really impressed if you show them or tell them how you found that information. Um, you instantly have a lot of merit and respect from them, and in showing that you know what you're doing, and that it truly is a powerful tool. It speaks volumes. This was another piece that I was particularly proud of this year. Was diversity searching. I spent some time looking at this, considering DEI initiatives at BECU. Where did things fit? Uh, this was more of a side project, wasn't anything in particular that I was looking for. But I thought, is there a way that I can simultaneously solve for diversity needs and years of experience? Um, and I came up with this concept, and I tested it in a handful of different capacities, and we'll see a couple more of those. But in the end, the answer was yes, to a degree. There's still some limitations, but this was one of the things that I thought was really cool, really figured out, played with, using the around function to look for both diversity and years of experience. Was mind blowing to me that I could solve for both. So the example that I've got here is we're jumping back over to LinkedIn. We're looking at a LinkedIn search here, looking for somebody that is software anything, right? Anything from an engineer to an architect to a director. I was not specific here, but this is the concept that you can run with. Uh, Listed here below the in title piece are some of the largest or biggest historically black colleges and universities. And so what I did was I took those HBCUs and I tied it to a date. So you can see Spelman College, Howard University, Hampton University, and so on. Then down on the bottom line, I see around 5, and then I've got dates: 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. And what I've now done is I've tied these dates to the HBCU. These dates will look at what will be listed as both starting dates as well as graduation dates. So 2015 could be somebody that started school in 2015 or they graduated school in 2015. So there is a fair amount of variability in the total years of experience that you're going to find with individuals in this particular strategy. But it was solving for both diversity needs, looking, specifically for people of color, and then looking at graduation dates, to tell me how long have they been approximately in the post-college workforce, acknowledging that there's the inherent bias that I'm now looking for those that have the opportunity for a higher education experience. That's not going to be the same for everybody, but this was a one solution. Couple examples of what that looks like, right? Top 10 HBCUs was the one that we had listed just above. If I was looking for women in tech or women in any capacity, one of the ways that you could go about that, it again solving for diversity needs and years of experience. There are plenty of ways that you can approach diversity, but looking at diversity and years of experience was tying the 10 largest sororities to dates again. I have found in playing around with this that a lot of women and men, for that matter, when they list their education, if they were involved in any particular sororities or fraternities, will list that with their degree in their education field on their LinkedIn profile. So it's searching for the exact same thing, right? I'm looking for these sororities. I'm looking for dates that they were in college and a member of these sororities, and it solved for that same diversity need and years of experience within reason. Once again, that 2015 to 2018 range is now looking at what year did they start college, or what year did they graduate. So there is the variability, and again, be willing to acknowledge the inherent bias of looking at those that had the opportunity for a college experience altogether, because not everybody has that. But it is one way to solve for diversity in an effective way. Um, and then continuing, here's a little pivot from the years of experience piece. But looking at native languages, right? I've got a huge string here of looking for those that list that they speak a different language at a native proficiency. So you can see, Spanish, French, German, Chinese, Japanese, and so on, tied to native, in and around statement. So now I'm looking for those that maybe they don't list that they went to college. Maybe they don't list, where they went to college. Maybe they didn't go at all, and but they meet the right parameters for your search. And now I'm looking for somebody who is most likely an immigrant in the United States, if this is or within a diversity category for your diversity searches. The same thing applies if you start looking at universities outside of the United States. I found this particularly effective with looking at Central and South American universities. The only caveat here with all of this approach is that listing out your universities takes a lot of your word count. On the very first slide that we looked at with the LinkedIn cheat sheet, X-ray cheat sheet, Google X-ray limits you to 32 words. So if you're using a lot of these words to list out your universities and then tying them to dates, you don't have a lot of room to work with the rest of your search. So you have to be precise. You have to figure out what's most important for this part of your search. But the same thing. The same thing worked. University of Sao Paulo, the University of Concepcion, tying it to a start date or a graduation date works the same. Martel, that's a great tip. Thank you. Native Current is a good extension to help build out these native language searches. I'll have to give that one a look. I have not looked at that one, so I appreciate the nod there. This was another one that I had a lot of fun with this year and had the opportunity to share was wildcards and stemming. This I covered both August as well as November in some different facets. So particularly the stemming and talking about that was covered in August. It actually may have been September now that I think about it. But talking about utilizing the around function with incomplete root words to allow for inclusive language searching. The other option was wildcards, and I've talked about this in a handful of webinars, but most recently was talking about the power of wildcards in Seekout in just last month's webinar, talking about the we've got a couple different variations here on screen, but talking about some of the unpublished stuff that Seekout has that can be particularly powerful. So the first one in wildcards, you can see on line 1 over here on the right-hand side of the screen, we've got current title, software, and eng or dev. The asterisk operating as a wildcard. I am telling Seekout in this instance that I really need engineer to be auto-completed and to allow for variations up there, right? So this could be software engineering manager or developer. A dev, if for one, if people just list that they're a software dev, or if they list that they're a developer or a software development engineer, engineer would have picked that up as well. But looking at the wildcards here and allowing for auto completion and variation of that. The second wildcard here being the / period, asterisk, period, / this is your blanket wildcard on Seekout, and one of the most powerful tools that they have of, I just need something to be present. The example here of utilizing this in a publications or patents search. So for this particular search, I'd be looking for a software engineer or developer that has either a publication or a patent. If I'm looking for one of those things, it might be really hard to know what to search specifically because the names of publications and names of patents don't always align with or clearly indicate what they're about. So this just gives you a blanket statement to say, hey, I need one of these to be present This is the quality of software engineer that I'm looking for, somebody who thinks deeply. Help me find it. But ultimately, while wildcard functions are really cool, in X-ray searching, I love stemming. So just a quick visual representation of what that looks like. Um, if I were to intentionally leave manage, the word manage, and drop the E in the way that I talk about this, I'm allowing for manages, managing, managed managers, as well as manager, managerial, and management to all return. If I were to include the E on this and not leave it in, and don't put it in quotations, just leave the E, I would never see managing return because it's GING rather than GE and whatever other consonants are coming after that. So utilizing intentional stemming in your round functions creates really powerful, more or less wildcards in the way that people talk about what they do. It's inclusive searching, and ultimately that's what's really important as you are building out your searches and trying to figure out what the best way to find the people that can complete the job that you're hiring for. Some people talk in present tense, some people talk in past tense, and some people do mixed. So just be inclusive about the way that you search for these things. On the inverse, if I put manage in quotations, all that returns is manage. It's not allowed to stem. So as you're building out your searches, if there's something that you don't want stemming at all, just include it in quotations. It doesn't have to be a phrase in quotations to have it make sense. By putting things in quotations, you're stopping stemming. So just keep that in mind. Here's our visual guide for that. I shared in this webinar in March. This was while I was unemployed. One of the cool things that I have had the opportunity to work with and have seen out there as well. For those of you that know Nikeo Hill, him and I were colleagues, and our friends. But we worked at Wayne Technologies together, and this was kind of our model for our candidate outreach. It's really hard to target diversity or to be diversity inclusive in your messaging, because there's so many there's so many ways that you can get it wrong and risk offending people. So the way that you can be inclusive in your candidate outreach is by targeting personalities, because regardless of whatever DEI category someone belongs to, everyone is going to have a personality type. So we utilize the DISC personality assessment, and we would draft messages for each personality type and send it in sequence. And that way, regardless of what their personality type was, they were getting a message that at some point was targeted towards who they are as a person and the way that they like to receive information. So that this was a fun one to talk about, and something that I've seen a lot of success with. I still do this a little bit, and not quite to the same extent. And the next slide is going to explain why. But I regularly saw a lot of candidate outreach success by utilizing this kind of a platform or this kind of an approach. We saw regular response rates from email campaigns reaching out to 200 plus people. We'd see response rates in the high 30s, sometimes into the 40% response rates, which then translated more often than not into high levels of manager introductions, filling up a candidate pipeline, and making sure that the most amount of people that are potentially qualified for that job are meeting with the right people. So that one was a lot of fun as well. This has not been covered in any of my webinars. It's been mentioned a couple times, but an introduction to AI. 2023 was a huge year for AI and AI implementation. Back in January, I was at a company offsite, still with Wayne Technologies. We were in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We were collectively in a room working on a handful of different things, and we were exploring Chat GPT. And it was kind of just starting to come out. People had heard about it. It wasn't all the rage yet, but it was quickly picking up speed. And now I feel like I can't hop on LinkedIn without seeing every other post or every third post being something about Chat GPT or prompt engineering or AI something. So what a year that has been for AI, and this is in particular a lot of what I've been learning and really been trying to dial into uh, professionally for this current year. Um, so my uses of Chat GPT, I've got a couple of use cases here. Is first to draft messaging, and that's where the DISC personality assessment has faded out a little bit. It's still present, and I try to target each message to still have a different DISC personality profile. However, I use ChatGPT to draft my messaging. Has made it so much faster, so much easier to reach out in mass. Put together my campaigns. I've got a list of candidates I want to reach out to about a particular job. Um, I take my job description, I paste it into Chat GPT with any other relevant information that might not be immediately recognizable or available on that job description. And I say, hey, draft draft messages for this. In particular, I always start with tell me 10 reasons why somebody might be interested in this particular opportunity. And then I'll have it draft an email for each one of those. And I usually tell it to keep it under 200 words so that I then have something to work with. And I've now got a baseline. I don't have to try and come up with all of my outreach on my own. And it has been a huge time saver. The other way that I utilize Chat GPT is having it summarize articles or web pages. So just like the job description, I'll paste a link or a URL. And I'll say, hey, summarize in what's in this article. And a lot of times it can do that in really few words, one sentence, two sentence. Here's what this says, and I can then include that in my messaging as well for things that about BECU in particular, or something that I saw that was interesting for the candidate that might be of relevant information. The last thing that's not on here, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't list it, is I have it help me write Boolean. When I've got long lists of ORs, locations, companies, particular skill sets, if they're fairly robust, I'll drop it into ChatGPT and say, hey, format this for me in an OR statement for a Boolean search. And it's done. It's really helpful in those regards. The other thing that I've had a lot of fun with is using Dolly, which is AI generated imaging. One of the biggest worries I've had, and I don't know if this is warranted or if it's entirely just my anxiety as I continue to put together webinars and share with others. But I'm always worried I'm going to accidentally share something that has copyright, and I'm going to get in trouble for that. My wife is also constantly worried about that as she is on her own business ventures. And so the discovery of Dolly and AI imaging has been phenomenal. It helps that you're able to put together things. You can create memes, which can be a lot of fun. You start to put together a particular scenario that you would like it to be, and then add your own text to it. It can be a lot of fun. So the thing to keep in mind is that just like ChatGPT, it takes iterations. This isn't something that for me at least has come naturally. Martel commented there, Dolly, yay. It's a ton of fun. He is excellent at it. We were chatting about this. Was that just yesterday, Martel, or was that 2 days ago? I want to say it was on Monday. So we were just chatting about putting together prompts, and I was blown away by the amount of detail that Martel was putting into his prompts. So definitely something to consider is how detailed can you be? What specific results are you wanting? And iterate on what comes out. But I like to use this as as I reach out, if I see something I've shared with a couple of candidates, images that I've put together, um, that lighten the mood, are fun and engaging. Um, so AI is huge. It's definitely not going away. So learn how to lean into it in ways that are going to be both creative and impactful. But that's been a lot of what this year has been. Uh, so let's talk about what's next as we wrap things up. Today's going to be a little bit shorter than it typically is. We're not going to go live sourcing, um, but let's talk about what's next. First is Aquaman X-Ray Masterclasses. The live webinar platform is pushing through an update to where I'll be able to issue certificates of completion, more or less, that you would be able to then claim as a certification that you have. So running through some X-ray master classes and having a way that you can showcase that that's something that you've learned is going to be becoming. I mentioned already earlier, SourceCon speaker, April of 2024. I'm super excited for that. I'm going to continue the monthly webinars. It's a part of who I am, what I do, and I have a lot of fun with it. So stay tuned for that. And then I've got a couple podcast features that are coming up. They're still being worked out. Details are still being worked on. But I'm really excited for those, and I'm going to be more than happy to share those when they happen. But this is a lot of what 2024 is holding for me, and the progress of my career for the next year. And so I hope you guys continue to come to the monthly webinars. I hope I'm able to continue to provide value, and that we can continue to grow together. But I've absolutely enjoyed this year. It's been so much fun. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, and the cool things are is that I've got to learn a lot of sourcing. I've got to meet a lot of really cool people, and that's going to continue. So that's really it for today. Told you we were going to keep it kind of short, or that it was going to be short. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm always happy to answer those. The recording will be sent out for anyone who was not able to attend it live. That'll be their first time watching it, but it'll also be sent out. It usually takes about 4 or 5 hours of processing time afterwards, before I'm able to send that. So it might come out later today. It might come out tomorrow. But either way, thank you everybody for coming. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not already. And let's have some happy holidays and another great year of sourcing.